composer and Professor of Composition at the Royal Northern College of Music. I'm also Director of PRiSM, the RNCM Centre for Practice and Research in Science and Music.
And I'm Marcus du Sautoy. I'm a Professor of Mathematics at the University of Oxford and also the Simone Professor for the Public Understanding of Science. And I'm also Co-Director of PRiSM at the RNCM.
I'd like to introduce you to a string quartet I wrote called 4 Musical Proofs and a Conjecture, and I wrote it co-collaborating with Marcus du Sautoy.
I've always been interested myself in the connections between mathematics and music, but traditionally people have always concentrated on number and rhythm or Pythagoras and harmony. But for me, I always felt the connection was something much deeper, which was that when I'm creating a mathematical proof or reading a mathematical proof, I always felt it had a very musical character to it, the way ideas will twist and turn and mutate, become something new, and you arrive somewhere quite different. It had a kind of drama, musical drama to it, proofs, and so that was kind of the beginning of our collaboration. Was I wanted to explore with Emily whether this had any resonance for her. You know, was I just talking nonsense that proofs felt kind of musical in character? So that was kind of the beginning, I think, of our journey.
Yeah, I mean, so it was wonderful to speak to you about this. We spent quite a long time actually with you. I mean, I do have a background in mathematics, but I haven't thought about proof in this way for many years. And I suppose I felt that just going through them again many times and thinking about them in this very particular way. I mean, I took from it, I started to think, what would it mean to create a piece of music as though I'm constructing a mathematical proof? Now, that was something really interesting because I'd never thought about that before. And so out of this arose these kind of 5 miniatures for string quartet. You know, they're all 5 movements, 5 miniatures. They're all kind of 2 to 3 minutes long, and they each explore a different proof.
Because I thought what I did was to share with Emily just some of my favourite proofs. And, you know, proof really begins with the ancient Greeks, with the idea that you can start with axioms, kind of obvious truths about mathematics, like if I add 3 to 4, it should be the same as adding 4 to 3. It shouldn't matter what order I do it in. So you've got these kind of basic, obvious axioms about number and geometry. And then mathematics, in a sense, over the 2,000 years that we've been practicing it, creating it, it is, well, what are the logical consequences of those axioms? And so I shared with Emily some of my favourite proofs from the ancient Greeks, and those became the kind of seeds for growing the kind of musical side of it. But I was actually, there was kind of an obvious thing which one could do, which is just to try and, actually really replicate the proof. But what is lovely, I think, in these pieces are that, what you did, Emily, was somehow take the idea behind those proofs and did something completely surprising as far as I was concerned.
Well, that's really good to hear, because I mean, I think that more in this piece than any other, I have really tried to make what I would call logical decisions wherever I can. But even so, I think that's what happens, that it tends to be that these sort of strict ideas become catalysts for these amazing ideas that pop up because you do these strict procedures. And actually, I mean, as a composer, I always include all of those anyway. So yeah, I think that just to have, I mean, what is musical proof? I mean, I would say that there's a big difference perhaps from mathematical proof or mathematical truth, because essentially in maths there is a truth, and in music perhaps, I mean, we can say there's a truth, but actually it's probably different for everyone. And what does that actually mean?
Yeah, but I think the other important thing to include here is often people think that mathematics is very cold and logical and clinical, and music is all about emotions and it's hot and it's very subjective. And actually, what I hope this reveals is that mathematics actually is hot and emotional and sort of subjective, because we're making choices about how we're getting somewhere. So what I hope is that the music, as it reflects, actually very I think honestly, the journey that I go through emotionally when I read those proofs or create those proofs. So this is not about making music cold and clinical. It's about making mathematics hot and emotional.
And I would also say, I mean, just going on for that, but that often, I mean, perhaps some people always think that maths has one kind of proof or one kind of and actually I would, if you took 100 composers and gave them this task, in fact you would expect to get 100 very different kinds of pieces with response to it. But I think you would argue that actually you'd get 100 very different kinds of proof.
Yes, proof is actually a reflection of a mathematician's character. And we all have different characters and inspirations, and so we will find our own different journeys, perhaps, from our axioms to our destination.